Chad, good to see you. A lot to get to in your wheelhouse. What do you think about the this pick of Kristi Noem to lead DHS?
Look, I think it's a great pick. Obviously, she's been a very successful governor. She's leaned in on the border security mission. She's detailed or has provided a lot of her National Guard to go down to the border. And she's interacted with FEMA a lot there in South Dakota from an emergency management standpoint. So I think she's pretty well positioned to jump headfirst into the department and go from there.
You mentioned FEMA. I think people forget how massive DHS is. So, kind of just real quick, like what are the big buckets that DHS covers?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously you've got a big immigration mission set there, but you also do emergency management. You do cybersecurity with CISA. You have the United States Secret Service. You have the Coast Guard, and you have Transportation Security Administration. Those are the airport screeners. And so you've got a lot of different operational components that you've got to juggle. A lot of different mission sets to try to keep the homeland safe.
So walk me through now. I mean, you were the guy that led this department, right? Trump's named Tom Homan to be somewhat of a border czar. Stephen Miller, deputy chief of staff for policy. How is that dynamic going to play out with everybody? Is it going to work well? Is it going to create some issues with jurisdiction?
I don't know that there'll be jurisdiction issues. I think there will be. There's always going to be a challenge for who has the best idea, but I think they'll coalesce around those, right? Because you have the first term of the Trump administration that will guide you a little bit on some of the policies that he pursued. But look, the environment has changed over the 4 years, so you're going to have to do some new things, and I think that's where the three of them will come together. And at the end of the day, the secretary, in this case, the governor, when confirmed, will have to operationalize it, right? We'll have to take the ideas from the White House and operationalize and put those ideas into action with her workforce. So I think that's going to be really important. She's led a state to do that, to implement an agenda, and I assume she'll do the same at DHS.
When you heard the news that Tom Homan was going to play this border czar role, what did that signal to you?
Well, it signaled that the incoming administration is really serious about this issue. Tom is a professional. He's got 30 years experience both at Border Patrol, but also at ICE, leading ICE during his last tour of duty, so to speak. He knows what the challenges are. He knows what the limitations are. He knows the law. But more importantly, he knows the operational cadence within ICE and the department. So I think he's going to provide a very valuable voice inside the White House and elsewhere to say, look, here's what we can do. Here's the timeline in which we can do it, and we can push. But there's only so much that you can do so fast. So hopefully he's that a little bit of a calming voice, and he's got that operational experience, which I think is just invaluable to say, hey, we can do this, but it's going to take a little time, or we can do it really, really quickly, and we should expect results quickly. And again, providing that balance in the White House, I think will be a good role for him.
A lot of the media is hysterical about mass deportations and all of this. How would you expect the initiatives to roll out?
Well, look, I think first and foremost, you're going to get different enforcement priorities from this administration than what you saw from the last administration. And again, it's important to remember that ICE removes or deports individuals every single day of the week, every day, every month, right, and every year. But what we've seen under the Biden-Harris team is that those deportations are the lowest that we have ever seen in the history of our country. And so you need to increase those. You need to prioritize and go after the worst of the worst. Those are the criminals. Those are the national security threats. Those are the final orders of removal. And you need to remove those. Even if you just look at that population alone, that's a historic number of removals. That's before you get to the other 12 or 13, 14, maybe even upwards to 18 million folks that are here illegally. So I think it's really important. The left is obviously trying to fearmonger. They're trying to tell everyone that, ICE is going to come for you in the middle of the night. That's not realistically how they do their job. They target the worst criminals in our communities, and they go after those folks, and they remove those folks first. And I think that's what you'll continue to see under President Trump.
I had an opportunity to visit the border down in Arizona a couple of weeks back, and I met with some of the deputies down there. And I asked them simply, what are the top things that you think would make a difference in the next administration? And they, without hesitation, said one, enforce the law, and two, finish the wall. And I said, what do you mean by enforce the law? And the deputy said, well, the first time that you cross the border illegally, it's a misdemeanor. The second time, it's a felony. We got one guy we picked up 29 times. How important is that in your mind that we send that signal that you're going to go to jail or you've broken a law?
Yeah, it's critically important. There's got to be consequences for illegal activity and illegal behavior. And you need to hold people accountable. The left is trying to play this game right now where they're saying, well, you can't remove families or you can't split up families. All that invites is individuals to come across with a family. And if they're a criminal, they're going to hope that they're not going to get removed because they're with a family. So it just invites more and more illegal activity. You need to get serious with folks. But I think as you start to remove individuals and you start to send the signal that it's not business as usual like the last 4 years, I think you're going to start to see that flow decrease dramatically. And then you'll see what kind of challenges you have, and then you put in new policies in place. I often describe border security as a game of whack-a-mole. You keep putting up new measures. The cartels keep figuring out ways to defeat them, and you keep playing this whack-a-mole until you get the momentum on your side. And I think that's what we'll see again next year.
What signal do you think? I mean, I the other thing I learned is how influential the cartels are. You mentioned them. What signal does a Trump White House send to them? Is it just, hey, we got to figure out what whack-a-mole we go around now, or is it we got to rethink our business model?
Another message to the criminal cartels in Mexico. You smuggled enough fentanyl across this country to kill 148,000 young Americans. You have killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined. And that's when President Trump gets back in office. He's going to designate you a terrorist organization, and he's going to wipe you off the face of the earth. You're done. You're done.
Well, I think they should probably rethink their business model. I think President Trump and his team are probably, they've signaled that they're going to be very aggressive with it, targeting the cartels and going after them. You've got to disrupt that business model if you want to have any success. We've viewed here in the United States the cartel issue from a law enforcement perspective for decades, and it's just not working. We're not seeing the gains. We're not seeing the reach that we need to stop their activity of human trafficking and smuggling narcotics and fentanyl across that border in the largest amounts. And so I think we need to be aggressive. I think the cartels are public enemy number one, and we need to treat them accordingly.
What do you think the role is with the Mexican government? Are they going to play ball with us? Are they resistant? How much should that play a role in what we decide to do?
Well, they're a critical partner. If we really want to be successful, if President Trump really wants to be successful, he's got to have some cooperation by the Mexican government. Exactly how you get them there, I think, is it's going to be a question. I think the government there is not going to be overly helpful, at least not initially. And so you've got to address that. You've got to use the leverage. The president's going to have to use leverage to get them to do certain actions that they may not want to do on their own. And we saw that during the first term where they deployed National Guard and they took steps. They didn't want to, but they did because they need the United States as a trading partner more than we need them. And that's not to say we should cut trade, but what I'm saying is the United States has the leverage over the government of Mexico in many respects, and we've got to be willing to use it for the betterment of the American people.
But do you think they based on your experience, do they get that? There's a new administration from when President Trump left office.
Yeah.
Do they claim ignorance, like, oh, it's just the cartels, we'd love them to stop, but we can't? Or do they really want to affect change?
No, I think they understand that President Trump is very different than President Biden. I think they understand that they're going to have to make concessions. The question is, do they make enough concessions and do they do it quick enough? What I saw from the Mexican government is they just slow roll you, right? They say, yes, we're happy to be helpful. And then 4 months go by and they really haven't done anything. There's been no measurable increase in any type of activity. And so then 4 months and then 6 months goes by. I think the challenge here will be to get them to do something very, very quickly to have it to be an impact along our southern border. They're not going to want to do that, Sean. That's just not the mentality that they have, particularly with this president. But we'll see if President Trump and the new admin, a new Secretary of State, and other elements put enough pressure on them that they have no other choice, no other alternative than to implement some measures that protect Americans while at the same time protecting Mexicans.
I mentioned this earlier in the show, but Trump being out of office for 4 years, there is somewhat of a silver lining. in that groups like yours at America First Policy Institute have been able to think about big, complex issues and said, okay, if we get back in, here are some of the things that we do. And you've been able to bake them so that this administration can choose from several things. How important is it that these guys, I mean, I remember in 2016, we were kind of like, okay, we won. Let's figure out what we're doing. The work that you guys have done, how critical is that to these guys hitting the ground running on day one?
Well, I think undoubtedly it gives them a leg up. As you indicated, at least here at America First Policy Institute, we've been able to pull together some of the best folks that served during the first Trump administration. And these folks know what works. They know what policies to pursue because they've done it. And so we've laid those out both on white papers on our website, but also information that we're providing to the transition as well. So hopefully whoever they pick, whoever the incoming folks are and the team that hits the ground running on day one, hopefully is in a better position to start. And I think they will be. There's a lot of work to be done between now and January 20th. The transition team is getting hard to work. So we'll see how it unfolds. But I think they're better suited today than they were at this time in 2016.
No question. How critical, I mean, based on the resistance that you might have seen when you were there, how important is it the right people are in the right jobs to affect the change that we're talking about?
Yeah, no, it's critical, right? I mean, you can talk about policy all day, but people is policy, right? If you don't have the right leadership in there, if you don't have the right change agents, if you don't have the individuals with the stomach to do some of these hard decisions, and they are hard decisions for the American people, and stick with it, then it can all unravel and fall apart. But look, the people that the transition and the campaign have identified so far, I think they're going to do a great job. They know what the challenge is, and it is a challenge, right? We have seen 4 years of this administration breaking down the immigration enforcement and border security system. It will take time to build it back up, and that's the challenge for the team.
All right, Chad Wolf, thanks for joining us. Thanks for all the work that you did in service to the country and doing at AFPI. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.